Okay, with the economy going to hell in a handbasket, interest rates are rising after all, inflation is on the up and up, green-induced energy crises are leaking across the globe, food shortages are causing chaos, not just in Sri Lanka, but around the world. It's pretty easy to become a bit disillusioned with what's going on. So to break it all down, explain whether we're facing a boom, a gloom, or perpetual doom, I'm joined by the brilliant Terry McCrann, economist and columnist with The Australian. Delighted to say he joins me now from Melbourne. Terry, welcome. Can I start with the unemployment rate released today? A 48-year low, 3.5%. This is a welcome sign, I'm sure, for the government and for the economy, but it brings with it some other pressures, doesn't it?
Well, Cory, take a bow, Scott Morrison, because the real reason why we've got such a low unemployment rate is that decision to close the border in March 2020. It didn't only stop COVID from flying into Australia, it stopped a lot of people from flying into Australia, all those migrants, all those backpackers, all those students that used to provide work, provide employment in the jobs that cross the economy. And the absence of those people has left those jobs for Australians, for people that are already here. So the fundamental reason why the jobless rate is so low is because we haven't had the 250,000 plus migration that we used to have before COVID. And it's a good news story potentially. Well, it is a good news story for Australian workers, and it could lead to higher wage increases. But then we get to the problem. If we have wages going up too much, we've already got that very high inflation, thanks to a whole host of factors, but most recently the war in Ukraine. If we have wages chasing prices and able to succeed in catching them, we know where that leads, Cory. That leads to a wages prices spiral, and that will mean even higher interest rates than we are already going to get from the Reserve Bank.
And Terry, this is the double-edged sword, isn't it? I mean, it's lovely to see low unemployment, but with the fears of a recession on the horizon, and there are people talking about that, the Reserve Bank's cash rate continues to climb, and people are now saying it could be 75 or maybe even 100 basis points at the next meeting of it. The Australian housing market, I'm told, is especially sensitive, and that's how a lot of Australians measure their wealth, don't they?
Well, if I can put it fairly brutally, Cory, the housing market fall in prices is the reduction in prices and property values that we have to have. Memories of Paul Keating in 1990. We have to have a readjustment downward of property prices. They've gone far too high, and the reason they've gone far too high is very simply those ridiculously low interest rates. In any normal context, a 0% interest rate, which allowed mortgage rates to go down to 3% and even lower in some cases, was just not sustainable. And there's a real problem because we've allowed people to be sucked into borrowing very large sums of money to pay excessively high prices for their properties, and they are now going to face the reality that their properties are going to fall in value, their repayments are going to go up, and they will move into a situation of negative equity, where the house will be worth less than they owe. But it'll still be the case for 90% of property owners. They will still be well ahead on what they paid for their house initially, and indeed what if they have any mortgage still outstanding. So it's an adjustment we have to go through. It's a reality that we have to face. Property prices, particularly in Melbourne and Sydney, have to come down to more realistic values. Interest rates have to go up to more realistic values. We can't keep running the economy on monetary steroids. We have to come back to reality. And we also have to get through, obviously, the specific problems that we face because of the war in Ukraine, those oil price rises, those gas price rises, which we seem intent on making worse, though, Cory, as you well know, and as Alex well knows, by the absurd restrictions on real energy, real gas, real coal in Australia. So there's a whole mix of things that are out there, but we are making it much worse by some of these insane policy structures that we're imposing.
Yeah, it seems that we have a policy agenda that is determined to punish Australia.